Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Schick, and today we have the joy of painting the latest Inhuman Medusa, who is coming out next month alongside Black Bolt and Lockjaw, who we painted in the past episodes over this course of this month. Dallas is going to be painting Crystal, the Princess of the Inhumans, sister of Medusa, this Thursday. We're going to be spending a little bit more time on these characters than we did the last two because we have a lot of detail to go into. Medusa has a ton of hair. We're going to have some fun, so we're not going to be in a rush to get through either of these. We're going to be doing these over the course of the next 2 weeks, so be sure to join back after each of those episodes to see where we wind up. But for this time, let's go ahead and dive in and get started on the Queen of the Inhumans, Medusa. Medusalith Amaquelin. I probably totally butchered that, but here is our gorgeous hairtastic miniature of Medusa. So we're going to be painting a very traditional scheme today. We're going to be following the comic reference very close, which I have up on my screen. So we're going to be looking at purples, blacks, and then we're going to be going for a very orangey bright red on the hair. So overall, we should have a lot of fun working on this miniature today. I'm excited to try out some new stuff, and of course, a little daunted by how much hair we have going on here. So we're going to take a look at that, see how everything's going, and move on. So my first step today is I'm just going to do a quick overall wash over the suit areas. I'm going to use a very thinned out blue wash. And the goal here is to kind of create some undershading. So of course we like to use our Zenith Prime highlight, which you see here. So we base coated in a dark gray, shot a lighter gray at a 45-degree angle over the top to create some natural shading and highlights. This is going to let our washes do a lot of the work for us. And so what we're going to be doing from here is doing a lot of pin washing or just washes in general, which is the technique we love. So by doing undershading, that's going to make my washes have some depth and some more richness to them. It's going to be really good. And we're going to have some fun with that. It's also going to help speed up our process because we've got a lot of other things that we need to do on this area. So I'm going to start with that. So I'm just going to grab some blue Inktense and a little bit of violet Inktense. So you can see here's the blue, here's my violet. I'm going to use a little bit of this together. I'm just looking for a really kind of dark, almost indigo, something that's going to play well with the purples, but also have a little bit of that blue shade that's going to really make those purples pop in the shadows. And again, I'm really thinning this out because I just want it to barely tint the tops of the highlights, and I really want it to pool in the recesses where I'm going to be able to get that purple wash that we're going to do next to really mesh together, look really nice. So you see this is pretty thin overall. Again, I'm not looking for a lot of saturation on my colors. I want this mostly in the cracks and crevices, so I'm going to focus really like in these areas of shadow by the leg. I'm going to be pretty heavy with it. And it's okay if I get these on my black areas as well, because it's just going to tie everything together. So the boots, the gloves, I have to be perfectly precise with it. Because again, these are just going to add some like undertones and shading, and it's just going to help the process go along. Hope everyone out there has been having a wonderful weekend. Excited to have everyone back joining us for some painting. Got some really fun stuff coming at you. I know Dallas is going to be going absolutely crazy on that crystal with all of her wild elemental effects and stuff. So I'm looking forward to watching that myself, picking up some tips and tricks on how to tackle my own crystal. But overall, it's going to be really good. So you can see, again, this is just a really, really faint wash. I'm going to add a little bit more color just as I get into those deeper shadows in the legs and stuff, because I do want that to be more pronounced. Since those areas are in a lot of shadow. And I'm going to try to do my best to keep my mess off the hair. So if I make a mistake like I just did there, I can wipe it off really quick with the brush. And then as this dries, we'll go in and we'll start laying down some color on the hair. And we're just going to work in stages again. We've got this week, we've got next week. We have all the time ever. So we can be a little bit more considerate and thoughtful about where we're going because we have a little bit more time. So it'll allow us to play a little bit more, have a little bit more fun. And I'm just kind of like going back through, thinking about where those deeper shadows are going to be. The Zenith Prime really helps me on that. So the sides of the torso, under the arms, Obviously, wherever the hair is kind of surrounding the body, it's going to be really dark because that hair is going to block a lot of the light source. So I'm going to go through on that. The effect is going to be subtle. We're not going to starkly change the colors because we want our washes to play well together. And again, we're just looking for a little bit of undershading. And if we want to accentuate it later, we can do that as well by adding a wash over the top of our purples or doing a little bit of two brush blending, anything that we want. So there's a lot of options. So this is kind of just a pre-step. It's going to help things go a little smoother for us as we move down the road, and hopefully will save us some time in the future. Just go back in, do a little bit more washing on the back, where I really want those shadows to be accentuated. Dark, avoiding this part of the leg because I know that's going to be in the light, and I want that really nice contrast between the back of the legs and the front of the legs. Going to the torso just a little bit more, kind of in the center of the belly. Going over to the side, then maybe getting a little bit under this collar. But also being careful not to get too heavy because we're going to obviously have a lot of light hitting right there. So I'm just trying to get right under that collar a little bit. And I can go back in with a damp brush, clean it all up. Make things happy. We've got our tint going down. All right, here we go. And so our blue kind of pre-undertone is there. I'm going to move on now. Well, we let that dry really quick because it is pretty wet because we had to thin it down quite a bit. We'll move on to the black. So I want a really kind of a true black. So a lot of times we play with blues and purples and stuff like that. Looking at a lot of the reference, she has kind of a really flat, shiny gray black, almost like a vinyl black. So I'm going to grab a little bit of rainy gray, which is right here. And I'm going to mix that in with some brown, gray, black. I think I'm going to mix it in with black. I'm going to create kind of a off-color neutral gray to start my work from. I'm going to thin that down a bit. But for the most part, I'm going to do black in the way that I like to do it when I'm doing specifically really flat black leathers, which is to kind of create a nice little, almost a little green. So you can see right here on my finger and the color that I'm going for. It's got a little bit of green to it, but it's a very flat kind of rainy day gray. And then grab a clean brush and I'm going to start applying that to the areas that I want to be black. And then we'll go back through with a wash using our Vallejo black glaze, which I really like to use for that. And that's going to give us a nice kind of leather black that I like to do. It's very simple, quick. So again, we're just going to hit all of the areas that we know we want to be that kind of black. And if it mixes in a little bit with some of my wash that's run, that's fine too. It's just going to add some more undertones and tie our colors a little bit together better. And so we're looking at the boots, the gloves, the belt, and then the cowl are all kind of elements that have that black. Now I'm going to be doing, I saw a really cool reference from one of the many Medusa images I was looking at, and she had this like kind of purple metallic armor for this area around the cuffs and the gauntlets and stuff. So I'm going to be going with that as well because I think that'll tie in really well with the colors that I've chosen to use on Medusa, and it'll be pretty fun. We can do a little colored metallics as well. Who doesn't love doing some colored metallics? So I'm going to be doing the whole cowl, I think. And this is definitely something I considered. There are most definitely a lot of variations on the costume over the years and the way that she's worn it. Of course, you can kind of go anywhere you want with it. You know, you could just do the mask over the face as black. You could do the whole cow as black. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to have the mask itself be black. I'm going to do the cowl as black. I'm going to do the sides around the head as purple. Just to kind of get a little bit of interest in there and make it a little different so that she's not entirely framed in the face in the dark black. And we'll see if that works, and if it doesn't, I can always go back and fix it later. So the belt really quick, because we want the belt to be in that same black color. Keep working it out. You'll see that this is a very traditional kind of base coat that I'm doing, so I didn't thin out the paint too much. Kind of loosened up with a little bit of water on the palette, so that it would flow nicely off the brush and stuff, and it will likely lead me to having to do 2 coats to get some really smooth coverage. But this isn't a wash. I'm not trying to let the zenith prime show through or anything like that. I'm just going in, doing a very traditional base coat. Go back to those boots really quick and just make sure that they're nice and solidly covered, because that's going to matter for when we pull out the wash. So we still got some of that blue that's really wet. That's okay. Get over and see what I'm doing, because it's hidden by hair. It's pretty cool. This glove here. Okay. So we've got that first layer of gray down in preparation of turning into our black. Because our blue is still a little wet, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on getting the hair based, I think, next. She has some very, very orange red hair, and most of the stuff that I really like. So I want to start with Mayhem Red, which is definitely a bit of a crimson, and we're going to start playing with that in terms of adding some orange to it, and building it up to kind of that really bright, vibrant, comic booky kind of style hair. So I'm just going to thin this out with a little bit of water. I may add a little bit, depending on how this looks as we apply it. I might add a little bit of our Vallejo Air Red, which is kind of a really nice primary red. But we'll see how that goes. We're going to try just straight Mayhem first. And this is going to be like really, really stark. Yep. I did thin it down because I want to play with kind of a lot of translucent layers over the hair, just to kind of play with the colors and get things to where I want it. But we're going to start with a really nice foundation of red. This is actually looking pretty much like I wanted it to, at least to start. And of course, by keeping our layers really thin, we're going to have a lot of control and ability to play and come back. Like we could have started with an orange, but for right now, we're just going to kind of tint all of the hair with this Mayhem Red wash, and then we can come back and we can play with it more and add yellows and oranges and all kinds of things to mess with the colors and pull it a little bit back from pink, which of course, if you apply red over white, you're going to wind up getting a bit of a pink. But by using some red ink glazes and some orange glazes and maybe even some yellow glazes, if we're feeling cheeky, we're going to be able to pull that color back from pink into the place that we want it for Medusa, which is that almost fire orange color for the hair. It's very, very bright, especially when the light hits it. The way they draw it and the way the colorists do it, it becomes super orange in a lot of the spots that I saw. And there are other artist interpretations that I saw where it is a very like deeper crimson red. You can keep it in this pink if you like it. It's kind of got a little bit of a Team Rocket feel. So all choices that you get to make. When you sit down and do your own Medusa. And man, one of the things I really like about Medusa is tabletop play. She's a boss. Had a lot of fun kind of specking out the rules and designing her. Easily my favorite of the Inhumans, honestly. Like, she certainly made me the most excited to do the team. Like, Black Bolt's cool, and he's had his moments, but Medusa to me was always the most interesting of the characters, you know. I really like some of the storylines that they've done with her for the last 10, 12-ish years. Thought her role post-Infinity arc was really fun. Kind of Black Bolt leaving her on her own and going off to do his thing while she kind of has to pick up the pieces and figure out how to rule. It's a very interesting character, really strong, powerful character who, you know, faces a lot of real world challenges, and it's not all peaches and cream when you're the queen of a genetically modified, half human, half Kree floating island race. You know? She, of course, is a choice in A Force, like Chad is talking about, and I think she brings a lot of tools to the table that they really like. And that, of course, was also important because she is one of the core members of that group in both the Secret Wars Battle World run, where they were initially introduced as the Defenders of Arcadia, and then obviously once everything kind of swung back and events transpired to bring the team kind of more back into the normal, she still maintained a bit of a role, although less so in the follow-up series. She had her own things to deal with by that point. But I really, really liked that A-Force, that original A-Force run that kind of introduced the team and tied them into the events of Secret War and God Emperor Doom and all that crazy stuff going on. It's just a really fun, I thought it was a really fun run, and it was neat to see that team kind of realized in the way that they wrote it. Boop, boop. Of course, you could do this lady in sub-assembly if you wanted to, just to make that hair a little more accessible. You would have to do it in multiple sub-assemblies though, because of how everything kind of like sticks together. The hair is 3 pieces, I think, to kind of create this net around her. So just something to consider as you're approaching the mini and think about how you want to approach it. I don't think it's too bad though, because the hair is really broad and there's a decent amount of space in between them. So hitting them up this way isn't too bad, in my opinion. And I don't particularly love sub-assemblies, but that's a personal preference. I don't want to spend a lot of time painting something if I'm not going to see it. I'd prefer to just kind of work my way around. And especially with the Zenith Prime and the washes, it becomes really easy to just mash paint into those areas and not have to worry too much about it. And again, anything that we kind of get on the suit, if we wind up having a little mistake, we can either wipe off or we can leave, and it will just provide another undertone for our overall purple, because purple and red obviously will play really nicely together. And so you don't have to be afraid to get a little painterly with it and let those colors kind of mix and play on the mini. All right. It's a little bit more mayhem red, and I think we might actually have it going on. All right. So I'm just going to get under here, loosen that paint. One more check over really quick. This is the really nice thing about working with washes and really kind of thinned out paints is that you can get a lot of flexibility to go over and over again and really change your colors and stuff. It's pretty easy to control where it's going, and as it dries, it will change a little bit on you. So when it's wet, it'll look darker. As it dries, it'll really start to lighten up, so never feel like it might have gotten too dark. All right, so there we go. That, except for this little tendril of hair, which we have to be a little careful with, takes care of our first layer of that hair. So, bam, beautiful. So there we go. This is our start. We're going to go ahead and go in and we'll hit the purple now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab Sunset Purple, which I think matches the overall suit color. You see, it's not, she doesn't wear like a deep violet. She kind of has more of that pinkish purple. So it's going to be a really great kind of foundation, I think, especially over that blue. We're going to thin it out into a wash. Just make sure it's nice and loose, and is going to let that Zenith Prime do all of our hard work for us. And we're just going to go over the entire suit that we want to be this color. Let it play with that Zenith. So we're just kind of looking for nice smooth coverage. We don't want it to pool heavily anywhere, although we do expect the color to run into the cracks and the crevices. That's why we're using a wash. But this first layer, we definitely want to have it tint all of the areas of the suit. And then once we're done with this, we can go back in and we can take our dark blue and we can work it into the shadows and the crevices. We can take a red, we can take a more indigo-y purple if we want to. There's a lot of different ways to approach shading the purple and bringing it back down into a color that we're happy with if we don't like quite how pastel-y it is to start. A little bit more as it dries. Again, this is going to go on a little darker than it's going to dry because there's a lot of liquid in it. And so it's one of the tricks is that you do want to give your paint time to kind of like settle so you can see what actually is going on with it as opposed to what you originally think is going on with it. We're not trying to force anything. We can always do more layers. So we're just looking for nice smooth coverage. Wanting it to stretch over those areas like the upper thigh to give some nice shading and some good highlights. We can kind of pull stuff away too if we get a little too heavy or we want a little more brightness because we got some working time with that. And again, with the way in which we're painting, because this isn't going into a competition, this is just meant to look really fun on the table and on the shelf. It's for me. I'm not worrying a ton about these areas here in the back because you can't really see them unless you're really looking hard for them. So as long as they have color on them, I'm going to count that as a win. But we're not really worried about a lot of like highlighting or anything like that. We just want them not to be bare, and then that's good enough. Also, you know, we're going to have our really dark colors back there, so we can go a little heavier if we need to. Push some colors around. we got a little pooling right there, so I'm just going to go in with a clean damp brush, pull it out, run it down the seams of her suit. Now I'm going to let that dry, and I'm not going to mess with it too much because if you mess too much with washes when they're in that halfway stage, you can pull up the color, and it'll make you really sad. So, because then you'll get like little rough bathtub rings that are hard to fix. So you do want to kind of just put it on and leave it, come back to it after it's dry. And then we can keep going as it goes. There, just a little bit. Get it under here. A little bit more. Cool. All right, so we'll just let that kind of dry up. One of the tricks you can do is if you use a well palette and you still have paint that you want to come back to later, you can take a bottle of paint, put it over it, and it'll keep it nice and wet going forward. So here's our start. It's pretty good so far. I better hold up the character card to compare. Man, if I had one around, I could definitely show you how close we are to our character colors. It's a good try though. It's a good try. Maybe BK will put something up. You never know. He's right there. It might happen. It might happen. We got lots of stuff going on. I have so much stuff around here too that if the camera got bumped, I'd be in so much trouble. It'd be bad. I gotta clean my office. Okay, let's move on to the black, which is dried pretty nice now. We're gonna grab our black glaze. So this is, again, something I've used on the stream before several times. It's my go-to when I'm trying to do kind of a traditional-ist black leather. It just has a little bit of grit to it, which makes it dry really, really interesting. It kind of mimics that leather effect really nice, especially over a gray like this. So you want to take a little bit of black ink, a lot of glaze medium. You really have to thin this stuff out. It comes out really chunky, almost like toothpaste. So black ink, water, I find adding sometimes a little bit of black paint, period, will give it a bit more grip. It all depends on kind of the overall effect you're looking for. And it's certainly something you may have to do a couple of passes over. You do, like everything, you want to build up layers slow and build up layers. So, go in, I think I may want to add a little bit of that black paint. So this isn't quite as potent as I'd want it to be. So you can see how it's already tinting everything down. I'm going to grab a bit of Abyssal Blue, which is this one. It's not quite flat black. It's got a little bit of blue in it. I'm just going to add a drop of it into the mix. And hopefully this will give us a little bit more saturation and vibrancy. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back and fix it. We can play. We have time. Sometimes experimentation's half the fun. Back out at the face, and I realized that I forgot to do the sides of the mask, so we'll get in and do that in a second. gloves. Kind of darken those out. The other glove. This part's going to go a lot faster. There's a lot less of this area to cover. Get the boots. A little careful here so I don't spill any of my black onto the hair. We don't want that. Go up that point. Belt. And this is one of those times where you can just kind of like touch the brush with the paint to the area you want the paint to flow, and it's going to flow for you because it's nice and smooth and it knows what it wants to do. You don't have to draw the belt back on by lines. Just let the sculpt work for you. Detail on the sculpt do the job. Backside, we don't have to worry quite as much. So what's going on? So already you can kind of see how that undertone of the gray is playing really nice with that black glaze. We're going to let that dry and we'll probably go back in and add another layer of it. I'm going to do the purple over the mask really quick. This is where our little red splotch may or may not cause a little bit of consternation for us, depending on how it covers. But we'll play with it later. Make it work. Here. And if we need to, we can always just take more of that. Here. Across the collar of the neck. The next piece of news, I think we have a big announcement coming here in the next week. Simone's around. I think she's actually meeting with folks right now. But we have a whole bunch of news coming by the end of the month, I believe, on all things AMG and kind of what the ground looks like as we move forward into the new year and stuff. So they've been busy putting that together. And I think that's actually what they might be meeting on right now as well. So it's Simone. But yeah, so as far as announcements and stuff go, bear with us for a little bit longer, but we got lots to talk about, finalizing details on it, getting approvals on everything, and then we will be kind of given, hopefully, a exciting start to a whole year's worth of fun stuff that's on its way. All right. So there is our purple set up. We do have to fix that little spot where our red on the hair got a little bit down. So what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to grab my basic color, so that sunset purple, and we're just going to be boring and put a little bit of a base coat on top of it, just to cover it up, and then we'll have to go back through. And because it's in shadow, this will be kind of nice, and will save us from having to do a lot of work because we won't really have to highlight the spot up too much. but we will want to go back through and kind of give it a little bit of an added bump. So that will take care of that. This goes back to, being aware. Obviously, if we'd been a little more careful when we started with that hair, we wouldn't have run into a spot, but it's okay. It's all fixable. It's all manageable. It's going to be great. We're going to be good. A little bit more of a wash here. And I'm going to grab a little bit of a smaller brush. I'm going to grab my purple. And I'm just going to come through and I'm going to add a little bit of extra color to areas of shadow. So kind of like getting in between where the legs kind of press together. For the side. And so this is just kind of pushing that wash around. So you see I started with a really big dollop right under her belt. From there, I rinsed my brush out, got it a little wet, and now I'm just pushing that wash around. So this can work really good rather than working from the palette. If you make a mistake and you put a little too much on or you put it in the wrong area, this is another way to really work those wetter paints on the miniature. And this is one of the great things about working with, properly thinned paints or washes, is that you get a lot more flexibility and working time when it comes to if you kind of you go, oh, I put too much on, or I didn't put enough on, or whatever. You can always clean a lot of it off. You can reabsorb it with a wet, damp brush. You can push it around and kind of spread it out and blend it with your brush. You can do all kinds of things. So there's a lot of play and options, and sometimes just exploring those will get you the results that you're going to love. They're really going to set things off. Oh, Cable was awesome. I loved working on Cable for sure. I'm very excited to see Lockjaw wind up in every list ever because he's just so cute. You can't go wrong by adding the bestest of boys to every list that you have. I think, overall, I'm excited for people to get their hands on kind of the next wave of mutants because I know a lot of people have been speculating and chomping at the bit to kind of expand out the Brotherhood and Uncanny. And of course, we got a couple surprises as well. There may or may not be an X-Force coming out with those new characters, so that's going to give a new affiliation to play with for all the folks who love to play multiple affiliations in their roster, as many as possible. Now you're going to get an extra one. But those characters they were a blast to work on. Definitely very iconic. I was always a bigger fan of the X-Force than I really was of Uncanny X, to be honest. Like I liked the more fearsome nature of X-Force, and of course, how can you go wrong with all of the pockets ever? So many pouches. Cable is definitely a fun one to work on. Certainly a challenge, but a welcome one to try to get right and do justice to, as it were. So I'm going to go back to my blacks really quick, and I just want to strengthen up. So this is the same black glaze mixture that we had before. And I'm just going to, again, add more of it to the cowl just to deepen that effect. Careful not to get any on our purple. We're going to go around the mask again. Domino is one of my all-time favorite mutant characters. So if I had to pick one from the upcoming stuff that I'm most excited about, it's definitely her. I just always loved Domino's storylines, especially more recently as they've kind of explored into her characters. The Hot Shots run I thought was fantastic. So, and just a cool concept in general. Like, made me so happy to listen to the debates about whether luck is a superpower or not. And I was like, heck yeah, it is. If you want to dominate at any kind of like character build RPG, put all your points in luck, and then just let Lady Luck take you to the victory. Drive everyone nuts. All right. So it's our next layer of black. So that's probably going to take us all the way that we'll need to on the shading for the black as it dries out and gets a little less shiny again. So we can see our hair's like got this nice sheen going on. It is still pretty pink though. So let's go ahead and play with that just a little bit while we wait for things to go. The taco truck's threat value, it has no threat value. I mean, at most it's a negative threat value, because if you really start to enjoy the taco truck, you'll never get to it. You'll just hang out and eat tacos all day, which it might be the hero we need, to be honest. All right. I mean, is it cheating if your power set is probability manipulation and you're throwing dice? Sounds to me like that's just playing smart. So I'm going to grab some red and some yellow ink tense colors. There's my red. Ooh, it's so red. Here's my yellow. And I'm just going to mix up a really quick orange. And we're going to start playing over the red of this hair with a little bit of orange ink. We'll probably grab just some straight red ink as well. We'll just start playing a little bit of like glaze blending, and I'm just looking for transparencies now. So kind of in that step where I just want to glaze everything. And ideally, as I put this orange over the top, you're going to see immediately how the value of that color starts to change from pink into more of what we were looking for. I'm definitely not going to do this with my little brush, because that would be madness. Because now that orange ink is allowed to pick up on all of the lighter pinks and the whites that are showing through from that zenith prime. But we saw that really nice strong red base. So we're going to get kind of that two-tonality of hair. And if we wanted to push this further, we could have done like an extra kind of glaze or wash that made even the crevices darker. Could have played with more crimson or some sanguines, maybe even some purples. There's a lot of really great sculpted texture on the hair. So there's a lot of places that you can go. And of course, the heavier or the lighter that you go, this is a pretty heavy glaze, mostly because I'm kind of like looking at time, and I know I really want to push this into the orange anyway. But you could make this effect way more subtle if you wanted to by simply thinning down the glaze even further and doing a lot of little thin coats. If you're going to do that, I strongly recommend having a hairdryer by your side, because it's going to take a long time for these things to dry because they're so wet. You can't really work on the area until it is completely dry. Again, otherwise you're going to pull up all your colors and that's going to be bad, and we don't want that. So be aware of kind of your timeline and stuff. But if Dallas, who's never had hair as long as I've known him, despite having seen pictures of him with the most amazing of hair in high school, has a hair dryer, then every painter can have a hair dryer. Mix up just a little bit more of that color because I burned through it really fast. So again, all this is just tinting our colors with that transparent glaze layer, similar to what we were doing with the wash, but now instead of trying to get it to flow into the crevices and the cracks, we're just using it as kind of a transparency. So imagine that you're just layering down a nice film, a little cellophane film over that red. Kind of the goal we're doing now is to really just lay a really smooth, consistent orange transparency over our hair red, and then that's obviously going to play with all of our different tones that we had from the zenith highlight and stuff. So we'll get our darks, we'll get our lights. It's all going to be under that transparency of orange. It gives us a really nice natural kind of shade, especially as it dries. Like we talked about before, the color is going to become less vibrant as it dries, which may necessitate you going into additional applications. All I have to do is get under here now. And then if you want to, you can just focus on certain areas instead of other areas as you do those extra applications. The more you do, the more orange it's going to become. So it's just something you want to think about, and you can be as clever with it as you want. Do it just over a spot. And this technique, this glazing technique, can get you really great reds too. Those really vibrant reds, you take something up almost to a pink, and then you just keep doing thin layer after thin layer of red glaze until you get that super deep saturated red glaze. Already you can see how we went from that beware there'll be trouble and make it double pink to that really nice reddish orange, and we're going to accentuate that even more as we move forward into next week. Our purple's really popping and looking really nice, so I'm very happy with where that came out. You see, as our blacks have dried, we have this really nice natural kind of looking leather that has some nice undertone to it with that gray. So everything's looking really nice, and it looks like Simone is giving all of the secrets. Oh, and talking about our stream that's going to kick off everything. We're going to be talking about news and what to expect and looking forward as we move into the new year. So be sure to watch for more information on that. It's going to be really good. But overall, for about 50 minutes on this Medusa, I'm really happy with it. We're at a point now where I don't really want to start anything else because I know we're going to be going into next week, and we'll have an hour left to finish her up. So I'm very happy with this so far. I think we're looking really good. We got to do the skin. We got to do the metallics. I do want to go back in and do a bit of accentuating on the hair for sure. We've got lots of stuff to go. And yeah, overall, we're looking really good. Very happy with where she's turning out. Excited to continue on with her and y'all next week. So be sure to watch for all the news and information coming out here over the next couple of weeks as we move forward into 2021. I hope you're all staying safe, having a great time, getting into the hobby, doing everything going on. I do look forward to hanging out with you next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific as we finish up our Medusa. Also, be sure to check out Dallas's stream on Thursday at 1 p.m. as he dives into Crystal. He's going to be showing a lot of really cool tips and tricks on how to get the most out of all of her crazy effects. So we've got swirling water, we've got floating rocks, we've got fire, we've got everything going on with that girl. She does it all. That's what makes her so cool. So otherwise, be sure to watch out for more spoilers, information, and all kinds of cool news stuff on both Crisis Protocol and AMG and everything else that's coming forward in the next couple of weeks. You can check that out on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We will be kicking off the painting challenge again for 2021 now that everything's back, with the hashtags being accessible on Instagram next month. So get your paintbrushes to a point, get your paints out, get ready. We're going to have a lot of fun doing some more painting challenges for all of the games as we move forward into 2021. Can't wait to see what you all have been working on and what you're going to wow us with next. Otherwise, be safe, stay happy, be friendly, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.